Hi, friends. Welcome back to another week of our social justice bedtime book club. We have a new book for you today, but before we do, we're going to talk a little bit about our topic this month. This month, our theme is housing security and homelessness. We know that access to safe and secure housing is an important right that unfortunately is not yet available to everyone. Many people across the country and the world experience homelessness every day. These individuals might be living with friends or family in their cars, at shelters, or even outside. This month, we're going to be learning about homelessness and housing security to better understand this important justice issue. Last week, we read a book about a daughter and mom staying at a shelter, and that book was a lot more like a story of them experiencing this. And today, our book is called On Our Street, our first talk about poverty. And we are actually going to do this reading that is a lot more educational. It's a lot less like a regular story that we read last week, and if you haven't read that, you can check it out. But today we're going to talk a little bit more about the facts, about some questions that you may have as we're talking about this topic. So let's get started with our book. As I mentioned, it's called On Our Street, written by Dr. Jillian Roberts and Jamie Cassup, illustrations by Jen Henricks. On Our Streets. And it begins with this. When you venture out into the world around us, you may notice things that are new to you. The world is filled with unique people who live in a variety of different ways. Sometimes people are happy in these different situations, and sometimes they are not. It's okay to ask questions when you do not understand the way another person is living. On the walk to school today, I saw a man sleeping on the street. He had all of his belongings around him. Why would he sleep outside? So we see from the very beginning of our book that we have some of our friends here asking some questions that maybe you have had before or you might have in the future. And it also has a little bit more of an explanation. It says, that person is sleeping on the street because he does not have a permanent place to live. That person is homeless. People who are homeless live on the street or they live in community shelters. Sometimes they move between shelters or between shelters and the street. People who are homeless are often in that situation because of poverty. Poverty is a big problem in our world today. What is it like to live on the streets? It's hard to live on the streets. People there are exposed to all kinds of weather and they can become sick when they can't keep dry and warm. People who are homeless are often hungry. Even if they have enough money to buy food, they don't have a place to cook meals. They may feel lonely or judged by others, and they may be treated poorly or be the victims of violence. Why does this happen? Why do people have to sleep on the street? There are lots of reasons why people might be homeless. Owning or renting a home is expensive, and some people can't afford to do this. Some have an illness or disability that makes it difficult for them to work and make money or to take care of themselves. Some homeless people are born into families who cannot take care of them. Others are born into families where they are hurt and neglected. They don't feel safe at home, so they choose not to live there. Sometimes people are homeless because they've lost their homes to a natural disaster, like a fire or flood, or they are new to a community and are having difficulty finding a home. Unfortunately, here in Southern California, we have seen some of these natural disasters. We've seen that happen with earthquakes or fires. And around the country and in different places around the world, we have seen really scary looking floods, hurricanes, tornadoes, different things that can destroy a person's home. and make them homeless for a while. Are there, are there children who are homeless? Yes. People of all ages can be homeless. Young children who are homeless may live with their families in community shelters. These shelters provide families with food, warm clothing, and basic services. Some families even live in their cars. Older children are sometimes homeless because they have run away from their homes. We heard a little bit earlier that sometimes home isn't the safest place, and sometimes people choose not to be there. That seems like it would be a really difficult choice and a difficult way to respond to that choice. But we know that homelessness can come and be shown in so many different ways. Why would someone run away from their home? Some children live in homes where they are treated poorly or abused. They might run away because they don't feel safe there. Children might also run away if they are neglected, if they do not feel important to their parents. Sometimes parents cannot raise their children themselves and give them up. These children become orphans. They may end up in community homes or in temporary homes called foster homes. Children who run away and live on the street often feel like it is a better choice than living with their families or in homes where they do not feel loved or safe. How can I help children who are homeless or unsafe? There are many ways to help children in need. You and your family can donate resources to places in your community that can help kids, like family shelters or boys and girls clubs. You can also help raise awareness of children in need by choosing a charity that helps children and then organizing a fundraising activity at your local school, church, temple, mosque, or synagogue. If you think a child you know might need help, talk to an adult you trust, a parent, a teacher, a coach, or school counselor. Was the man I saw sleeping on the street homeless as a child too? He may have been, but he may not have been. He may have grown up in a loving and supportive family, but as an adult, his situation changed. For example, he may have developed a physical or mental illness. When someone has an illness, it is very difficult to cope with daily life. Sometimes people are too sick to go to work, and then they cannot pay their bills or buy food. In these situations, people's health challenges lead to poverty and then to homelessness. Are the homeless people the only ones who live in poverty? No. Being homeless is only one kind of poverty. There are other kinds of poverty that are harder to see, like when people are not able to go to school or to go to the doctor. Don't all kids go to school? No, not all kids are able to go to school, especially in other countries like Africa, Asia, and South America. Even in more prosperous countries, some kids do not receive a good education, and not all children have access to important classroom tools like computers and the internet. Many are unable to go to college, university, or advanced job training. Without a good education, it can be very difficult to get a good job when you're older. When people do not receive a proper education, this is a sign of poverty. I go to my doctor whenever I get sick. Why doesn't everyone do that? Not everyone is able to see a doctor for regular checkups to make sure that they stay healthy. When you are sick, you may need medicine that costs money, or you may need to travel to see a special doctor or take time off from school or work for appointments. Not everyone can afford to do these things. But being able to see a doctor when you are sick is an essential service. If children are not able to receive good health care, they may grow up with a physical or mental illness. When people do not receive proper health care, this is also a sign of poverty. Families who are new to a community or a country often find it difficult to get the things that they need. Without support from people in their community, they may not be able to do such things as find a doctor who's taking new patients. This is especially true for refugees. What are refugees? Refugees are people who have been forced to leave their home and settle in a different country where the language, culture, and customs are usually different from their own. This may happen because of a natural disaster or war. Refugees leave their homes because they do not feel safe, and everyone deserves to feel safe. Feeling safe is a fundamental human right. What is a fundamental human right? Fundamental human rights are things that every human being deserves. Everyone deserves a home that they feel safe in. No one should have to go hungry. Everyone deserves to have access to school and doctors. The United Nations is an organization that was started to bring peace to all nations of the world. The UN wrote a special document that declared what rights everyone in the world should have. It is called the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. They also created a document that defines the rights of children specifically, called the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. What can we do to help people who live in poverty? One of the most important things you can do is care. Ask questions. Remember that everyone matters and that we can work together to help those living in our community. A lot of the work that needs to be done to end poverty is complicated, but you can talk to the adults in your life about it. You can talk about ways to celebrate people's differences, to help people feel proud of their backgrounds and abilities. You can talk about ways that schools and organizations in your community can help support families in need. There are some things you and your family can do that will make an immediate difference. For example, donate non-perishable food and toiletry items to food banks. Drop off new toys to fire halls during the holidays. Donate gently used clothing to charity. Introduce yourself to your neighbors, with your parents of course, or to children at your school who you don't know. Practice random acts of kindness to people living on the streets. A smile or a sandwich means a lot. Support refugee efforts in your community by volunteering your time. Celebrate diversity in your community by learning about a cultural celebration you don't know much about. When I first started to talk openly about growing up in poverty, it was difficult. People tend to correlate poverty with low ability and intelligence. But I did it because I wanted children who are growing up as I did to know that I am no different than they are and that they can accomplish anything. Reaching out to children who share these messages and to break the assumptions about poverty is important to me. I couldn't have been more thrilled when Dr. Jillian Roberts contacted me to discuss her work and how we could educate children about issues of poverty so that they could understand them and help solve problems associated with it. As an expert in child psychology, Dr. Roberts was the perfect person to learn from and collaborate with. I'm excited to work with her on this project and hopefully on many more to come. All children have tremendous capability and capacity. If we give them the tools and the opportunity, I hope this book inspires 1,000 solutions to the problems of poverty and homelessness in the minds of the children and those who read these pages. And this is a note from the author. On one rainy afternoon, I came across a powerful quote that inspired me. Don't ask kids what they want to be when they grow up. Ask them what problem they want to solve. I have spent my life working with children, and I worry about the challenges they face now in our rapidly changing world. Our kids need to be prepared to face these challenges, and they will need to solve many problems along the way. It is essential that kids are to educated to be effective problem solvers. With all of this inspiration swirling around in my mind, I reached out to the brilliant person who wrote the quote that inspired me. His name is Jamie Casap, and he is Google's education evangelist. Jamie and I decided to work together on inspiring children to help solve some of the most pressing problems facing our world: homelessness. The result is this book. I hope it inspires you to help solve this problem. I thought it was important for us to read these notes from the illustrator, not the illustrator, I'm sorry, from the two co-authors of this book, because it brings us back to why we are learning about this topic. We know that we each have an ability to help in this world. And your ability at your age might be a little bit different than mine and my capability, but that doesn't mean that you're not able to do something. Right now, maybe all you're doing is learning and hearing about this and starting to care about some of these issues. And that already is doing a lot of the work that is really needed. So I hope that reading this book helps answer some of the questions, and I hope that, like the author said, that it inspires you to do something in your community. Even if that's just having a conversation with your parents, that's a big start. As we say often here at our book club, we know that the books we read, the short conversations we get to have, are not the end all be all of the learning on the topics that we talk about. This is not all of the possible information on homelessness or housing security, but we hope that it is enough to spark an interest in you. And we know that not one single person can solve all of the problems of the world, but we hope that if there is something that catches your attention, that you feel really called to, that you continue to learn more about that, to ask more questions. And as you continue to grow older and be able to do more, that you choose to do it. Thank you so much for joining us this week for our book time. We'll see you again next week to continue our topic around homelessness and housing security. Thank you so much. Have a great night. Bye-bye.